While you were inside the school, did you see officers
There was
inside
not
the
one
school?
officer inside the school when I ran to my second son's class. There was not one officer.
Angeli Gomez, the mom that ran into Robb Elementary School to get her kids during the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, is now speaking out about her experience after police there threatened her to keep quiet. So I'm going to get to this clip here from CBS News, their exclusive interview with her. And this story picks up after police held her back, handcuffed her, and then she convinced one of the cops to unhandcuff her before she ran into the school to get her kids.
She says after Uvalde police officers told marshals to uncuff Gomez, she ran towards the school.
As soon as they uncuffed me, I jumped that first gate fence. And once I jumped it, I went to my son's class and I knocked on the door. And I remember the teacher saying, I'm like, hey, they're already bulge cutting the fence to get me. She's like, you think we have time to get out? I said, you'll have time. I'm going to run for my other son.
Once she was assured her son was okay, Gomez ran to get her other child, encountering more officers who tried to stop her.
So I start yelling and I'm being a cooperative and I'm like, well, y'all aren't doing what are y'all doing? Y'all ain't doing y'all need to be in here. Give me your vest. Somebody give me a vest, something. I started paying attention to how far the shots were being, so that I knew the shooter was all the way still by my first son's class. So when I went to my second son's door, the teacher didn't want to open the door for me. So that's when they started escorting me out. And as I see that they're opening my son's door, I go run for my son and I get him.
With both of her kids out safe, Gomez still can't shake the thought of those who didn't make it.
While you were inside the school, did you see officers
There was
inside
not
the
one
school?
officer inside the school when I ran to my second son's class. There was not one officer.
And you were hearing gunshots, so you knew
You
that
could hear the
it was an active
gunshots.
shooter.
It was still active. The gunshots were still active. They were not in there. There was no one in there. If anything, when I pulled up, my car was closer to the school than where the snipers and everybody that was laying on the ground were.
When you heard that it took law enforcement 75 minutes before they went in and stopped the shooter, what was your thinking, having been inside the school yourself?
I don't know. I was just thinking that they could have saved many more lives. They could have gone into that classroom and maybe 2 or 3 would have been gone, but they could have saved the whole class. They could have done something. Gone through the window, sniped them through the window. I mean, something, but nothing was being done. If anything, they were being more aggressive on us parents that were willing to go in there. And like I told one of the officers, I don't need you to protect me. Get away from me. I don't need your protection. If anything, I need you to go in there with me to go protect my kids. And if anything, they were being more aggressive on us. They were more pertained on keeping us back than getting into that school.
And she also told me that, you know, she's on probation for some charges from about a decade ago, and that she received a call from someone in law enforcement telling her that if she keeps talking to media or if she, you know, keeps sharing her story, that she might face some kind of violation for obstruction of justice. So she was holding back from sharing her story until now because a judge told her that she was brave and that her probation would be shortened. So that gave her the courage to talk to us.
All right, so in a minute here, I will get to just how often the Uvalde police have lied, how often they have changed their story, and I'll show you examples of that. And that goes into why they threatened her. Here is a mom that understood the urgency of the moment, had way more bravery than anybody else there in terms of the police on scene, ran in there with no weapon, no protection, no armor, ran in there to get her kids because she understood this was a serious situation and the police were doing nothing. Meanwhile, the police trying to stop her from saving her kids, handcuffed her. It's amazing she was able to get out and go in there and save her kids. And imagine if she wasn't able. Imagine if she stayed handcuffed. What may have happened? So this is just a devastating story all around, and it further goes to show how incompetent these officers were trying to stop this story from being shared because they understand that it exposes them. And to that point, I have a few links here to share below the video. I'll go over some of the details, but there's a lot here. So from Insider, 13 times Texas police have changed their story of what happened during the school shooting that left 19 children dead. So Insider has a breakdown here, but CNN as well actually has a really good interactive element to this. So they write how law enforcement's narrative of the Uvalde massacre has changed. And if you actually go to the top of the page, They'll show you the initial story. It was the wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that. They'll show you the initial story and then cross it out and show you what actually happened. So the shooter was engaged by law enforcement as he entered the school, but then that changed. The shooter did not encounter anyone on his way into the school. And they go over, a number of these. So in fact, it was more than an hour that the gunman was in the school after initially they said 40 to 60 minutes. But we can go through some details here. So gunman outside the school. Then he engaged with a school police officer, but then it changed to he walked in unobstructed. So there actually was no officer outside the school, even though police had initially said there was. He entered a door propped open by a teacher. Also not true. The door was closed, but it did not lock. He posted messages on Facebook. That's actually not true either. He sent private messages, not Facebook posts. And, this goes on and on. As I said, less than an hour. It actually was more than an hour. The suspect was pinned down. He was not pinned down. He barricaded himself in the classroom, and the police finally admitted afterwards it was the wrong decision not to go in. And there's even more. Police chief didn't respond to interview requests with the DPS. Now he's actually apparently in contact with authorities. But it is insane. And on top of that, this came out as well. Journalists will face arrest charges if caught reporting on Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District property. So if they're on the school district's property, they will be arrested for covering the story. I'm not sure how this is even legal, but this is what they're doing. One positive thing to come out of this so far is that there is a Robb Elementary worker who is taking legal action against the company that made the AR-15. Now, it's hard to know how far this kind of, legal action will go, but something has to be done, both about what the police did, their complete failure, and about the gun aspect of this. Having an 18-year-old be able to walk on his birthday into a gun shop, buy an AR-15, then buy hundreds of rounds of ammunition. It is insane to me how that is legal. How anybody can justify that. How anyone can even justify the sale of any AR-15 to anybody, let alone to an 18-year-old on his birthday. And then hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Just completely insane. This was completely preventable. As I've said a million times, the amount of mass shootings that happen in the U.S. is completely unique to the entire world. No other country sees this. We all have our issues. The entire world has issues with mental health, issues with, social media bullying. That was one that was being thrown out by Republicans, or the existence of media, movies, TV, video games. We all share in that same media. Yet the U.S. is an outlier when it comes to mass shootings. The only difference is the guns.